I've been challenged by Surprise Shirts to win Liga Portugal with whatever team they've sent me inside this box. So let's open it up. This is Boa Vista. You've got to be kidding me. Not only were Boa Vista relegated from Liga Portugal last season, they were demoted all the way down to the 5th division after financial and legal chaos. So now I've got to somehow drag this team up from the basement of Portuguese football, back to the top flight, and then somehow beat the likes of Benfica, Sporting and Boa Vista's big city rivals Porto to win the entire thing. Thanks a lot to Surprise Shirts for sending me this brutal challenge. More on these guys later on. It turns out getting relegated 4 times in one season decimates your squad. We only have 12 players and most of them are teenagers. One legend has stuck around. Cesar Dorata, Boa Vista's former top flight goalkeeper, is here for the season. But he's way too good for this level and out of contract in 12 months time. So we need to take advantage of having him right now and get promoted. Unfortunately, we're £1.1 million in the red, which means Cesar's protection detail is limited. Still, because of our reputation, we've pulled in players who should be 1 or 2 levels above us. As a result, we are the favourites to win the title in Season 1. Manuel Namora is 27 years old, experienced, confident, and already calling this his team. There's also Thiago Machado, who's younger, faster, and maybe hungrier. On paper, it's a fantastic partnership, but in reality, it's going to get messy. As the season started, it was Namora who was scoring most of the goals. He scored a hat-trick as we beat Candel 3-2 and scored braces against Volgosa Maya and Combroich. Machado, on the other hand, was pretty quiet and was actually being outscored by central midfielders. At Christmas, we're top of the table and unbeaten. Namora is our undisputed talisman. But things can change quickly in football. Because in the second half of the season, it wasn't Namora scoring, it was Machado. He was so good, he actually ended up outscoring Namora by 19 goals to 17 across the season, something Namora was fuming about. There may have been an individual battle going on, but at least they're working together towards a collective goal. Because as expected, we top the league table and don't get promoted. That's because there's 2 groups of 16 teams in this Porto area. The top 4 from each group goes into a championship group, playing each other home and away, with the winner earning promotion. Portugal's 5th tier actually has 22 leagues, with only 1 team going up from each. So it is chaos. Both our strikers scored in our first game, a 2-0 win against Alpendurada. Then Namora scored a hat-trick in a 5-3 win against São Martinho, before scoring a brace against Rio Tinto as we won 5-1, reasserting himself as the top dog in the squad. Machado wasn't done there though. He scored a hat-trick in the rematch with San Martinho, which means we're only 1 step away from going up. We're top of the championship group with 2 games to go. But in our game against Alpendurada, they had other ideas, as they scored first. But we don't need to win, we just need a point. Late on in the game, Machado got the goal that we needed to draw 1-1 and lift the title, earning promotion to the 4th division. So whilst we prepare for life in the 4th division, let me tell you a little bit more about how I got this Boa Vista shirt. Surprise shirts are the best way to expand your football shirt collection and find your new football manager team. The process is simple. Choose your size and box type. The FM edition guarantees you a shirt of a team that's in Football Manager. Then you tell them if you want to play it safe with a well-known team, or go for it and send you a really niche club. You can also let them know of any colours or teams that you don't want to get. Finally, at checkout, use code TFM10 for a 10% discount. Although, if I was you, I'd be saving more money by becoming a Surprise Shirts member. You get sent a shirt every single month at a discount, and you get entered into insane giveaways. Lee, for example, won an all-expenses-paid trip to Gibraltar with myself and Surprise Shirts this October, and all Surprise Shirts members get an invite to come along with us. Plus, when you use code TFM20 at checkout, you get an extra 20% off your first subscription order. So visit Surprise Shirts via the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen right now to find your new Football Manager save and your new favourite jersey. Once again, we have to rely on free transfers to build our squad. Brazilian Caio Cesar is the best of the bunch, and he's going to sit behind Namora and Machado. But it's the academy graduates that I am most excited about. João Cardoso is a 16-year-old box-to-box midfielder, and 15-year-old Maximilian Marengo is a ball winner. We're still so far down the Portuguese football pyramid that teenagers like these two can actually help out our first team massively. There are 4 leagues that make up the 4th division, but the pre-season preview lumps them all together in one table, and we are favourites to win it all. But the 4th division was tougher than we were expecting. Last season it was Namora and Machado in their battle for supremacy that won us the title, but this season they couldn't score. As a result, we stalled. Too many draws and the occasional defeat crept in. Instead, Caio Cesar stepped up and outscored them both, and I'm starting to wonder if he's made Namora and Machado obsolete. Thanks to Cesar, we cling to the top of the table by a single point at Christmas. And heading into the new year, thankfully we have the kids from the academy to help us step up. Marengo has 12 penalty taking, so he was put on spot kicks and did not let us down. Cardoso was also taking his chances, scoring 3 times in the second half of the season. And then they both contributed defensively, as we didn't lose a single game in the second half of the season. So we top our league by 8 points and go into another mini promotion league for a shot of reaching the 3rd division. We won our first game 2-0 against Vianense before beating Vitoria's B team 4-1. Sinface were then brushed aside 3-1, giving us a perfect opportunity. A second win over Vitoria B, 4-2, sealed our promotion to the 3rd tier. So season 1's heroes may have faded, but new ones stepped up and got us promotion. However, we're going to need all of these players if we want to make a success of the 3rd division next season. Gabby Brass signs for £40,000 from Porto's B team to anchor the back line, and for £75,000 we signed his Porto B teammate Leonardo Vonic. Only 2 new signings does make me a little bit nervous, but we couldn't find any major upgrades on our current players. So, can last season's champions do it again? The 3rd division is split into a northern and southern group. The top 4 from each head into a promotion group. But getting into the top 4 wouldn't be easy. Teams kept finding ways to score goals against us, but somehow we always escaped. Vonic scored a late winner against San Joanense and rescued a draw against Varzim with a glancing header. He isn't flashy, but delivers when we need him. Caio Cesar also scored a late winner to defeat Vianense 2-1 away from home, whereas Marengo put away a last-minute penalty to beat them 2-1 at home. At this point, if Marengo is standing over a penalty, you may as well just start celebrating. Cardoso also scored in the 81st minute to secure a draw against Penafiel, which led to an extraordinary achievement. Despite being in losing situations more times than we'd care to admit, we didn't lose a single game in our group, surely making us favourites to top the promotion group and move up to the 2nd tier. Promotion was looking more and more likely when we started winning in the promotion group, but reality then hit us hard. It turns out the teams in the south of Portugal were much better than the teams in the north. We ended up losing to Alverca and Dezembro, putting a dent in our promotion aspirations. With 5 games to go, we're 2nd in the group. The top 2 get automatic promotion, whereas 3rd has to go into a playoff with the team who finished 16th in the 2nd division. Luckily, we won our next game 3-0 against Penafiel to keep promotion hopes alive. Next game, we needed a result, and Vonic saved us again, this time in the 89th minute against Trofense. But we then lost 3-2 to Massama away from home. That means we're now walking on a tightrope. We're still in 2nd place, but any more slip-ups and we aren't going up. Especially because in our next match, we were playing 3rd place Varzim. Things were looking up for us when Varzim fouled Machado in the area and Marengo slotted home the penalty. But we bottled the chance of promotion 4 minutes later when we conceded and drew the game, meaning we only are 3 points ahead of Varzim heading into the final day. Everything came down to these final 90 minutes. Right back Agostinho got us up and running 15 minutes in. Vonic then followed it up 8 minutes later to double our lead. And late in the second half, we scored our 3rd goal to seal all 3 points and secure automatic promotion to the 2nd division. After 3 promotions in a row, the team are desperate to make it 4 from 4 and get back to Liga Portugal. The pre-season preview though is suggesting it's going to be very, very tight. And with just 2 automatic promotion spots available, we're going to have to be at our very best throughout the entire season. We sold Namora and a backup right back for £90,000. We used the money to fund 6 new signings worth over £250,000. To compensate for the loss of Namora, we found 18-year-old striker João Costa on a free. Thomas Perez from Porto B cost us £100,000, but he is the best of the bunch, and I'm hoping he's going to hold the team together in the centre of midfield. After drawing our first 2 games of the season, a 94th minute goal from Vonic saw us beat title rival Santa Clara 1-0. He also scored the game's only goal as we beat Belenenses 1-0 away from home. It also wasn't long before the youngster, João Costa, began scoring as well. He got a brace to beat Tondela 2-0, and then got another brace against Sporting Farense to win 2-0 in that match as well. But the cracks were already starting to show. We lost 3 games in the first half of the season against teams that we should be beating. So despite being second in the table at Christmas, just 7 points separate first and 9th. Anything can happen in the new year, and for us, the worst happened. We had the classic January Football Manager blues. Nothing worked and we couldn't buy a win. Everything we built over the last 3 seasons collapsed in 7 games. We picked up just 1 point. We looked lost, and for the first time, I didn't have answers. Even Marengo couldn't score from the penalty spot. We picked up a few wins in March and April against Tondela, Sporting Farense and Porto B. But despite young Costa finding the net, even he couldn't save our season. We dropped to 9th, nowhere near promotion, and are doomed to play another season in the 2nd division. But I promise you, we're going to come back stronger. To make sure we get promoted, we need to improve our defence. So we picked up Dominic Perpic from Porto B for £130,000. We've made a habit of signing rejects from our biggest rival. New left back Simon Engby, who left Randers in Denmark at the end of his contract, looks really intriguing. He could well be our best player on paper at just 19 years old. They're 2 of 5 new signings, plus 2 loan deals from top flight clubs, all brought in to make a proper promotion push. I made sure before the season started that they were all subscribed to the channel, because when you subscribe to a TomFM channel, all your players in Football Manager get a 100% skills boost. Luckily for us, the new defenders were doing their jobs and keeping clean sheets. The new problem was, our forwards were struggling to score. But because we were keeping clean sheets, we were winning. Before Christmas, we won 4 of our 15 games 1-0 and another 3 goals by a 1-goal margin. A lot of these goals were scored by academy graduate Natercio Lamoso. The 18-year-old had been playing as our shadow striker, and despite not having incredible attributes for the role, he's our top scorer. And thanks to his goals, we have a 4-point lead at the top of the table by Christmas. But the ghosts of last January crept in. We suffered 3 straight defeats. There were no wins in sight. We could feel the slide starting. So imagine my relief when we finally broke the winless streak by defeating Varzim away from home, with Lamoso obviously scoring. And just when we needed someone to step up, João Costa finally remembered who he was. After a poor start to the season, Costa bagged braces against Paços de Ferreira and Académica de Coimbra before scoring his first ever hat-trick in a huge 5-1 home win against Portimonense, extending our winning run and taking us to the cusp of glory. Thanks to Costa, with 3 games to go, a win against Belenenses would seal the title and take us back to the top flight. But our opponents frustrated us and didn't let us create many chances. We knew what a win would mean. 1 goal is all it was going to take. But for 35 minutes, we created nothing. Frustration set in, and I reckon that's part of the reason that Costa could only hit the post. My heart was sinking. With half-time approaching, we needed some luck, and we got lucky when the ball bounced around the penalty area. Marco Ribeiro got a decent bit of contact, sending the ball into the back of the net and giving us the lead. The second half was really dull. Chances were few and far between, and we knew we had to score a second goal or we could throw it all away. 75 minutes in, we came close to doing that, allowing Belenenses the chance to breeze past our defence, but they couldn't hit the target. So once again, 1 goal was enough. We hold on for our 8th 1-0 win of the season and lift the Division 2 title. We've clawed our way back to the top flight. But Liga Portugal, well, that is a different world. We're not just the underdogs now, we're the punchline. The players that we loaned in to get to Liga Portugal are the backups of the top teams in Liga Portugal. So before we can think about winning it, we have to survive it. Only 7 players in our squad are considered Liga Portugal quality, and 3 of them came through our academy. But it was getting frustrating when every player we approached wanted big wages. Wages that we can't afford. We're almost £400,000 in the red. Luckily, Juventus came to our rescue, offering £5 million for Simon Engby, which I negotiated up to £10 million. They also offered him back to us on loan, which we accepted and leaned into. 4 of our 10 signings this summer are youngsters in on loan, hungry to prove themselves. Chido Obi hasn't developed as much as Manchester United would have wanted, so he's come here on loan to prove himself. Randy Schneider is a permanent signing and an accomplished top-flight midfielder who will add experience to a very youthful team. But the pre-season preview has us down to finish in 11th place, so are we going to be good enough to survive the league? We thought we had a kind start to Liga Portugal. Then we lost 5 of our first 7 games, including matches against AVS, Alverca and Estoril. We expected to struggle, not to nosedive. Our only win in that stretch was a 3-2 win at home against Estrela Amadora, with young centre midfielder Felipe scoring. We signed the Brazilian midfielder from Académica Coimbra for £500,000, and he was turning out to be worth every single penny, as he scored the goals to beat Maritimo and Gil Vicente 1-0. But as his purple patch came to an end, the losing quickly continued, as we faced the league's top teams like Sporting and our city rivals Porto. But a Chido Obi brace did cause an upset as we beat Benfica 2-1. We can't get too carried away though, because at Christmas, we're 16th in the table and in the relegation playoff spots. Form started to turn around in the new year. Lamoso hit a purple patch, scoring 5 goals in 5 games, leading us to 3 victories. We then went unbeaten in February as another summer signing hit a purple patch. We signed Swede Mikael Nyholm for £375,000 from Helsingborg, and the 21-year-old scored 4 goals in 4 games, helping us to a further 2 victories. So with 5 games to go, we're up to 10th in the table and only 7 points off the European spots. Suddenly, Europe wasn't impossible. The issue is, our final 5 games of the season are against 5 of the league's top 7, and we went on to lose all 5 of them, scoring just 1 goal. That pushed us back down to 14th place, barely surviving the drop. But surviving in this league is no small feat. Our squad was built on academy players, loanees and the scraps from elsewhere. If Felipe can improve next season after an impressive first season at the club, and Nyholm can become a more consistent scorer, we could take a big leap in Season 7. We have a big problem. Last summer, we sold Engby to Juventus for £10 million, and the board have used every penny, and then some, to build a new stadium. This gives me a transfer budget of £250,000 and a wage budget I can barely breathe in. I'm not being backed financially by the board. Players that will take us to the next level want almost all of our spare wage budget for themselves. So I made 2 big bets. Gianluca Busio is our top earner on £10,000 a week, and new goalkeeper Manic is on 8. They're both quality, but signing them meant gutting the rest of our plans. So once again, we're relying on loanees and last-minute deals. Despite this, the pre-season preview now reckons we're going to finish 8th this upcoming season. But we had another poor start to the campaign. We lost games to Vitória, Gil Vicente and Rio Ave. After all the hard work over summer, it seemed like we were in for another tough year. Until we picked up a 1-0 win against Estrela Amadora, thanks to an 89th minute winner from Busio, which began to turn things around. This prompted an uptick in form, where Nyholm began to find the back of the net on a more consistent basis. He even scored the game's only goal to beat Braga 1-0 away from home. So by Christmas, we find ourselves 9th in the table, way better off than this point last season. Nyholm was slowly becoming our new hero. The Swede was our top scorer and leading by example. His goals got us wins against Alverca, Maritimo and Vizela. A young player who we signed initially as a backup was now arguably our most important starter. Thanks to him, we have a fantastic opportunity. With 5 games to go, we're 6th in the table and we have an outside chance of European football. However, 6th place might be a false truth. In our final 5 games, we have to play 4 of the league's top 5. This season, we did lose to Sporting and Benfica, but a 2-0 win means that we did the double over Braga, and a 93rd minute equaliser from Randy Schneider means we drew with our rivals Porto, which ultimately stops them from winning the league title. We end up finishing in 6th place, but just miss out on European football. Finishing 6th wasn't luck or a fluke, it's proof that we actually play good football and we have a decent team. Just imagine how good it could have been if the board backed us fully. £650,000 is more backing than we had last season, but it's still not ideal. So I had to take drastic action. I sold Nyholm to Lille for £6 million. The board are going to let me spend around £2 million of that on new players. The fans were obviously furious, but I told them to be patient, because I've sent our scouts out around the world to look for some incredible talent, and we've signed some wonder kids. Richard Bolaños is the Nyholm replacement. He cost us 1.1 million, but he brings international experience with his 8 caps for Costa Rica. Whilst the scouts were in South America, they also found ball-winning midfielder Marcel Borja, who has 5 caps for Paraguay. In Nigeria, they found Uchenna Latif, a left-footed midfielder with 4 international caps. And then they found something ridiculous. I've actually taken the screenshot from before we signed him, because if I didn't do that, I actually don't think you guys would believe me. Victor Yusuf looks absolutely incredible. And importantly, he was on an amateur contract, meaning that we could sign him on a free transfer. And he's by far the best player in our team. Unless you ask our scout who said he'd only be a good backup player, that guy needs sacking ASAP. And after all of that, we're still only predicted to finish 8th this upcoming season, so it might not even have been worth it, especially because I am desperate for a top 5 finish this campaign. For once, we actually started strong. We had 4 straight 2-1 wins, before then losing 2-1 against Estrella Amadora. Interestingly, there was not one standout scorer, everyone was chipping in with goals. Victor Yusuf was clearly the most effective of our new players, and as a result, he finally got his first international call-up for Nigeria. We also managed to beat our big rivals Porto for the very first time, thanks to a late Bolaños winner, and we thrashed Sporting 5-2 away from home. But losses to Benfica and Braga, as well as drawing games against teams down the bottom end of the table, means we only sit 6th halfway through the season, right on the cusp of European football. To get us there, we need someone to step up, and luckily for us, Richard Bolaños was the man to do it. He helped us go on a 10-game unbeaten run, before Estoril defeated us 2-0. But thanks to this run, we've put ourselves in the best place possible to secure European football. With 5 games to go, we're 4th in the table, and we're on track for a spot in the Europa League. But once again, there's just one big problem. Our final 5 games are against the other 5 teams in the league's top 6. I would love to know how Football Manager creates this fixture list, because every season we seem to be ending it playing the best teams in the league. And naturally, this is where it all fell apart. Vitória smashed us 3-0, then Benfica and Porto edged us 2-1. Thankfully, we stopped the bleeding by drawing with Braga to keep them 2 points behind us, but we'd need to beat Sporting to stay ahead of them on the final day. And incredibly, Bolaños scored twice on our way to a 3-0 victory, securing a 5th place finish and a spot in the Europa Conference League. With some big European money coming our way, maybe this is the time the board are finally going to back us and we can start to break into the league's top 3. It might not be the windfall we wanted, but 3 million is way more than they've given us before, although they can still be stingy. We sold Busio to Saudi Arabia for 12 million, but the board only let us spend 2.6 million of that. So I spent 2.4 million pounds on Ecuadorian international Ivan Cardenias to partner Bolaños up top. And thanks to having Conference League football, Kendry Pies joined us on a free transfer after he left Chelsea. We then spent over £4 million on new faces to bulk up our squad to fight on two fronts. Here, we frustratingly lost 2-1 to Aston Villa and drew 3-0 with Fiorentina, but wins in our other 4 games against Astana, Lausanne, Sheriff Tiraspol and Viking FK mean we finish 7th in the table and move on to the knockouts. Of course, winning the Conference League would be a dream, but we can't lose sight of our ultimate goal, winning Liga Portugal. We beat Sporting on the opening day of the season 1-0, but then suffered a defeat to Vitória straight after. Then a series of late goals got us points against the other big boys. Bolaños scored in the 96th minute to draw with Braga, Cardenha scored an 88th minute winner against Benfica, and right back Louis Bennett scored a 91st minute winner against Porto. But all of that hard work was undone by losses to teams way down the table, like Estoril and Rio Ave. So at the halfway point of the campaign, we're only 5th, despite taking points off the league's top 3 teams. This shows just how brutal Liga Portugal is. I wanted us to stay focused on the league, but the boys had other ideas. They beat Istanbul Başakşehir 3-0 in the Conference League round of 16. And although we beat Hertha Berlin 2-1 at home in the quarterfinals, the Germans beat us 3-0 in Berlin, knocking us out of the tournament and making sure we could focus our time on winning Liga Portugal instead. However, we may have just thrown away our opportunity to do that. We suffered a series of draws against teams below us in the table, which means we dropped 8 points in the title race. With 5 games to go, we'll need a miracle to topple Sporting and win the title, and we'll have to beat Porto, Benfica and Braga in the process. But the dream was shattered when we could only draw with 10th placed AVS, and then we lost to 15th placed Firenze. Even more frustratingly, we beat Braga and drew with Benfica, although a loss to Porto was the nail in the coffin. Despite taking 16 points from a possible 24 against the teams who finished above us this season, our inability to beat the teams below us mean we finished 16 points off the top spot, way down in 5th place. Based on how well we did against the top teams, I do think our first team is good enough to lift the title. We just need better quality in depth around them to make sure we can always beat the teams below us. After 9 seasons of scrapping, selling, loaning and surviving, this year feels different. This season, we could actually win the title. We only have 5.5 million to bring in the depth that we need, so we have to be smart. We started by signing quality free agents, like Anthony Herrera, who left Defensa Sporting at the end of his contract, and Darius Sapa, who was let go by Man City after failing to make a single appearance for them in the last 2 seasons. Then we spent money on players to fight for starting spots, like left-back Augusto Argotti and goalkeeper Giovanni Vara. The 7 new additions to the team add some serious quality. If we can do what we did last season and take points away from the teams that should be fighting for the title, but also make sure we improve and beat the teams below us, this could be special. I got more excited after we suffered an early exit from the Conference League. We smashed Randers 7-2 on aggregate in the 3rd qualifying round, but then in the final qualifying round, we lost 4-1 on aggregate to Napoli, who had made the Champions League semi-finals last season. So we don't make the league phase, and instead we can put all our attention on winning Liga Portugal. We started the season at home against Sporting, and just managed to beat them 2-1 for the perfect start. A few games later, we came from 2-0 down to beat Braga 3-2 with Victor Yusuf scoring a late winner. He then got the winner again, this time scoring the game's only goal away at Vitória. However, we still lost games to 8th placed AVS and Firenze, who are down in the relegation zone. Title teams don't drop points here. Add in a few more draws against mid-table sides, and we know there is still room for us to improve. We're 3rd in the table at Christmas, 4 points behind Benfica. I feel like we've had a remarkable start to the season, but it's still not good enough. We need to be perfect from here on out. And we have to start perfection by making sure we win our next 4 games against the top dogs. Vitória have been struggling this season, so we came out as comfortable 2-0 winners. Porto were a little trickier. They had more shots than us and a higher XG, but Victor Yusuf and Richard Bolaños scored to secure all 3 points in a 2-1 win. Sporting, on the other hand, totally capitulated against us. They could only manage 3 shots all game compared to our 15. We won 2-0 to overtake them in the table, but we didn't have enough to beat Benfica. We actually had double their XG, but their 2 goals in the first half were enough for them to win. So as a result, we move up to 2nd in the table, but stay 4 points behind Benfica. The title race is turning into a two-horse contest. We kept the pressure on Benfica by continuing to win games. Bolaños and Codenies were the guys scoring the goals as we kept collecting 3 points. Unfortunately, there were some slip-ups though. We drew 0-0 at home with Aruca and we lost 1-0 away from home against Famalicão. But with 5 games to go, we are now 2 points behind Benfica, but they do have a game in hand, so they could actually stretch their lead to 5 points. However, Benfica have the tougher fixtures and we get a chance to gain 3 points on them when we host them on the penultimate day of the season. In big moments, it's often Victor Yusuf who comes to our rescue, and this time was no different. He scored past Estrella Amadora as we won 3-0, before bagging a brace in a 2-0 win against Alverca, but he couldn't save us when we drew at home against AVS, dropping 2 crucial points. However, Benfica dropped 4 points with a loss to Porto and a draw with Sporting. So with 2 games to go, we're just 2 points behind the league leaders. If we can now beat them, this is realistically our only chance of going top of the table. So this next match is everything. Our boys were totally fired up, causing issues for Benfica's back line within the first 2 minutes. It didn't take much longer to find the breakthrough. Victor Yusuf's ball over the top found summer signing Herrera, who finished with power past the keeper. 20 minutes later, we made the most of an attacking throw, but defenders were too slow to react to Omar Dior's movement and he doubled our lead. At the break, we're top of the table. 45 seconds is all it took for Benfica's defence to fall apart in the second half. A mix-up led to Herrera scoring a tap-in to make it 3. However, they did regain enough composure to pull a goal back just over an hour into the game. Then, with 13 minutes to go, they managed to find the back of the net again. And I thought we were about to throw away our best chance of winning the title. So I told our players to waste as much time as possible, and it worked. We cling on for a 3-2 win and move to the top of the table by a point, heading into the final day of the season. The issue is, we're now away at Porto, our biggest rivals. The last thing they want is for us to lift the trophy in their own stadium, and they were determined to win. Thankfully, Bellio was denied by the woodwork early on, but we can't rely on drawing this game, because Benfica have taken the lead against Braga. Our players were incredibly nervous and we were hardly creating any chances. Technically, the best chance we had was when Bennett hit the post with his low cross. So at the break, as things stand, we are dropping to second place. I told the lads I was far from pleased with them, expecting that this was going to make a change. But it didn't. With 70 minutes on the clock, there had been no highlights. So I took off top scorers Codenies and Herrera for Bari and Pais. But this seemed to help Porto more. They held on to possession and bombarded our penalty area, but every time we were just about able to clear the ball. Then we finally had a chance to come forwards, getting the ball into the area, but no one could take the decisive touch as we totally missed the target. Time was running out, and with 5 minutes to go, Kendry Paez had a free kick from distance that Chevalier just saved. As the clock hit the 90th minute, we had one final chance to get forwards. Dior collected the loose ball and played a wonderful pass down the wing to Paez. Time stood still as he beat his man, found Bolaños, who scored the goal to win us the game in the 91st minute, sealing the title and completing the challenge. From the 5th tier with no money, through busted loans and miracle wins, with academy graduates sprinkled in there. 10 seasons later, we're champions of Portugal. Big thanks to Surprise Shirts for giving me this challenge. Remember to get your own surprise shirts via the link in the description. Once you've done that, I know you'll enjoy this other challenge that Surprise Shirt sent us. They asked me to win the Club World Cup with whatever team was inside the box. Obviously, it wasn't one of the big boys, so we had to work incredibly hard to make it work. To see how we did it, click the thumbnail on screen right now to go check out that video.